Uh, Bill, thanks for joining. How you doing?
Doing great, Randy. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Nour, always great to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Dan. It's good to see you.
All right, good to be seen. Well, really excited about this episode number 63 of the Tech Sales Podcast. We're very pumped to have Bill Hogan, who's recently joined Beyond Identity as the CRO. So they are definitely going to be poised for lots of fantastic greatness. This, as always, is brought to you by Sales Community, and today we are sponsored by Outreach, who Bill knows and loves. So the plug for Outreach is they're the first and only engagement intelligence platform built by revenue innovators for revenue innovators. Outreach allows you to commit to accurate sales forecasting, replace manual processes with real-time guidance, and unlock actionable customer intelligence that guides you and your team to win more often. 5,000 customers, over 70% of the Cloud 100, 19 of the 25 fastest growing public SaaS companies. So fantastic platform that we will hear more about. Fortunately, I've had the pleasure of knowing Bill probably since we were both Cub Scouts. So we overlapped a little bit at BC, but more early days at EMC when he was a telemarketer. And we all knew from probably the first week that he was poised for greatness for sure. Was a sponge when it came to just kind of learning and developing. Always had great relationships, and as he's developed over the years, has been amazingly successful and without sucking up, just kind of fantastic personality. If I were a rep or leader, I would love to work for him. Always a fan of the channel, always very authentic, doesn't BS at all. And more importantly, I can vouch he's a fantastic father, husband, and family man. So Bill, feel free to disagree, but really excited to have you on here today. And our title is the first.
Words, Randy.
No, mean them all. And the title today is the first 90 days, which you are right in the middle of. So look forward to hearing more.
Excellent. Again, thank you for the kind words. It's been you personify friendship and advocacy, and spirited the community of sales that we have. It's so appropriate that you've developed in this company called Sales Community, because you've lived and breathed and built it, and I'm proud to be a part of it. So again, thank you for having us on here today.
Thank you. So how about starting off with a personal intro, where you've been, what you've done, kind of how you arrived here?
Sure. So as you alluded to earlier, I got my start at EMC, spent 10 glorious years back in the 90s. Started as a SDR, BDR. And when I left, I was running about $1 billion organization in tri-state of New York, and it was fabulous. Some of the best sales leaders and the best sales execution capabilities that I've ever witnessed. I witnessed during those first 10 years of my career, and I've taken that with me everywhere. Left to do something smaller and what I felt at the time more impactful. Did my first startup, Storage Apps. We were successful and sold that company to Hewlett Packard inside of a year. Left EMC because it was too big for where I wanted to be then. You can only imagine what I thought about HP when I got there. Wonderful company, forever indebted to them. But it wasn't for me for what I was looking to do. I wanted smaller, more impact at that level. And at the time, I would have thought startup again. But candidly, young family, not sure. And I knew I wanted to be in New York. I decided that I was just going to be good at being in New York and go where my career took me. So I bypassed the startup world then. Could have said I didn't have to. I don't know. That was my choice. I found Netapp, and I had 10 glorious years at Netapp. Some friends that I'll cherish forever. EMC was my foundational skill set. My growing years really were at Netapp. I came in at a higher level. We very much cared about culture and how we did things. And it just really was a great 10 years in terms of helping take a company from a point in time, $700 million when I joined, $7 billion when we left, 40% channel when I joined, 90% channel when I left. And as I joke affectionately with my friends across the globe, when you're part of that kind of growth for that period of time, with that kind of shift from direct to channel, you build up an awful lot of goodwill. You make a lot of friends, and unfortunately for me, that carried me through my shift over to my security journey, which I started after I left Netapp, which Dan Warmenhoven, then chairman of Netapp, told me as we were playing golf at Cyprus when I told Dan that I was most likely not going to come back for the next year. He kind of laughed. He said, he goes, Bill, at the time, he goes, I love Netapp. I've given it everything, but it's time for me to go back to where growth is. And I'm running to security. I'm going to do boards. I'm going to do other things. My suggestion is you do the same. It's the number one problem that exists today, and it will be for the rest of our shelf lives. So a direction towards security was made there. Owned and operated a VARP briefly, had my first security practice in there. That wasn't what I hoped it was going to be. Got my vendor side chops at Fortinet for a couple of years, and then found Security Scorecard, a New York-based Sequoia Google venture-backed cyber startup at sub 5 million in ARR, and had 4 really wonderful years there. Helping take a company from sub 5 million in revenue to over 70 to unicorn status. A lot of friends, a lot of growth, learning SaaS. Really refining my skills and my relationships in the security marketplace. Good time, really ended things very amiably there. My son and my daughter still work there. Wish them nothing but success. But I wanted to go find a new challenge, and I found Beyond Identity. We're going to change the way people view passwords, change the way people view preventing the ransomware, preventing the attack. We have to get to prevention. We can't just get to response, right? And how we do things will revolutionize the security landscape forever. I'm passwordless in my first 3 weeks here is life changing. I could never possibly imagine going back to a world where I need to use passwords again. And more importantly, I can see where this tech is going to take the commercial landscape, where we can give that great user experience at a heightened level of security, which is the important piece, to consumers around the globe. So without making that shift, without the direction that Warmenhoven gave me, I wouldn't have found myself to be in this position. And I'm super excited and super fortunate for what lies ahead.
So, Bill, great background. For our audience, we're live on several platforms. Would love to have you jump in with your questions, comments. I think we've got one from Jesse. Bill, what would you say is one thing that makes someone great in sales? Obviously, we all know there's multiple attributes, but if you were to pick one, I'm going to go to you first, then I'm going to go to Seidel. This is from Jesse. So one thing that makes someone great in sales.
It's got to be persistence. I mean, you got to have thick skin, and you've got to will yourself to win through obstacles, through adversity, through no's. Our business is the business of eliciting yeses, and there's an artful way to do that. There's an annoying way to do that. There's a persevering way to do that. At the end of the day, you got to find your way. But persistence and the will to win is something that a great salesperson has to have.
So, Randy, I'm going to ask you the same. Give me one thing that makes someone really great at sales.
All right, I'm going to say be a continuous learner. So I will often tell SDR groups, think of it more. Everybody thinks you're winging it, but think of it more as you're an accountant, and you got to be always learning. You got to be very detailed across all the different steps that are necessary for success. And,
beautiful.
We have a LinkedIn user, didn't say their name, but he put it in. I'll add on a second, even though you didn't give it to me. But says making the calls. So when I was at HP, large organization, I was there after Bill, and I figured out, okay, you have to have one mantra, right? So many things. So I just said sales calls. So I said, okay, on average, I think we're probably somewhere between 3 and 4 a week. Let's get to 8 to 10. By the way, I'm going to lead by example. My leaders are going to lead by example. So if we can just do more sales calls, it's a numbers game. That's going to move the needle a lot.
Love it. I'm going to add build phenomenal relationships. If you lead with the relationship, if you ensure it's mutual value creation, if you're not penny wise and pound foolish and not just do the deal and then forget about them, I think those will serve you really well over the years. So, Jesse, thanks for that. We're getting some great comments in the comment section. Really want to encourage our audience to jump in. You've got a ton of experience with Bill, Hogan, Seidel. I've seen a few companies along the way as well. Would love to answer your questions. So, Bill,
Hey, David,
yeah.
Can I pile on one more comment? Because I want to give a real life example that literally just happened today. which brings us back to a point in time. I had a meeting with my old BDR leader and my new BDR leader and my sales leader and a couple of the BDRs, and we're talking about accelerating the toolkit that we have. By the way, outreach, awesome toolkit. One of the things we talked about was using them, using their sequencing. But one of the things I also brought to light there is it's awesome for sequencing, but you also still have to get to the personalization piece. You can't automate everything, right? And that's where relationships come in. I can't send a canned email to somebody I've known for 20 years, right? I got to personalize that, even if the canned is a great message, right? So as I was talking to this young BDR leader, I'm like, you need to understand this. I'm your CRO. Like I've got 30 years of experience doing this. I'm spending time customizing my emails because it's important, because I'm taking into consideration the other person on the other end of that email. I want them to know it's coming from me. I want to get that response. So you think you're a BDR now and you're interviewing for a rep job soon. Don't ever let go of what you're being taught right now as a BDR, because if you think it changes the further up you go in the organization, it would be the first big mistake you made in your career. So Randy had drilled that to me at an early age. I continue to drill it into SDRs and BDRs every opportunity I get, and it's really a fabulous way for people to start their career in sales, and for when you're partnering with companies to get to those people, because we got to dummy down the message so young professionals can qualify quick, get attention, and move the ball forward. So anyway,
love that. No, a lot of great wisdom from Bill and Randy. So Bill, you started going down this path. I'd love to learn more about Beyond Identity. What's and tell us a little about the company, tell us a little about technology, and what attracted you there.
Sure. So young company, founded in 2019, publicly launched as a company in April of 2020, right about the time COVID hit, right? So interesting ramp for them in the last couple of years. 3 core products: secure work, secure DevOps, secure customer. We've raised about 105 million to date. Post B round company, massive space. I think you're going to see more interesting things coming soon on that front. The founders, Jim Clark and TJ Hermelick, these guys are industry legends. They founded Silicon Graphics, founded Netscape, been involved in Healthion WebMD, and just success after success. So that was very, very, very attractive. And the problem that they're trying to solve is a real problem. And there was something come out recently from Biden's new edicts in terms of what needs to be. And this isn't going to make folks from MFA companies happy, but basically the U.S. government just came down and said MFAs are useless and they're not good enough. And if you're using a push-based MFA, you can't, basically need not apply, right? What we're delivering is the first unfishable MFA, right? It's an invisible MFA, if you will. We're taking zero trust. We're putting it at the front end to the point where people can't be penetrated. And what people have done for the last couple of years makes sense to a degree, and you did the best you could with what was available. But life changes. Better ways to do things are there. The fact that it's more economical, even the better, and it will change the way people handle the supply chain and third party and passwords and the interaction internally in organizations and externally to our customers forever. Easy to use, one-time passcodes, no one-time passcodes, no magic links, no secondary devices, easy to set up, more secure any way to authenticate. We verify the identity of the user to the device, and then it makes BYOD a non-issue, and it's continuous in the check. So revolutionary stuff led by revolutionary industry pioneers, and the tech is super sound. Jason Casey, CTO, is one of the best I've ever worked with, and super excited about being here.
Who is the buyer? Still that CISO, CIO type of a buyer, or who are you engaging?
So it depends on the product set, but it's definitely a multifaceted value prop for any corporation. We'll start with CISO, CIO, and there'll be, depending on the organization and depending on the technical level interest of said CISO or CIO, they'll then sanction us further into the organization. The secure work product is to secure your own perimeter. That's something that's going to be handled by identity folks and security folks as that bridges in reality these days. Secure DevOps would be, head of product, head of tech, head of engineering, where they can have a secure way to make sure that shared pool that's out there is easy to use. And the secure customer, for the CIAM piece, that's the president, the CEO, the board, the CRO, and validated by head of product, head of tech, head of CISO, because you have to make sure it works. But there's a real competitive advantage of improving the secure way by which your customer, whether it's a freemium customer or a paid customer, finds you, is secure, and the user experience that they have. So it's multifaceted in the platform that we provide, C-level, interest level for sure, and then we'll get support further into the organization from there. But it'll be a top-down, bottoms-up approach.
Randy, it's good to see Frank Roush joining us, and I think he's got a question.
Yep. Frank says, to Bill, what different sales leadership qualities are critical in EMC, Netapp, Fortinet versus the startups?
Great question, Frank, and always good to see and hear from you, my friend. I think if you go back to the EMC days, EMC was a $100 million company when I joined, and it was younger than that before when Randy joined. So, it was in the startup mode, right? That sense of urgency, the fire in the belly, right? Those are two things that I look for, because sometimes experience brings a lot to the table. Sometimes those two things got lost along the way, right? So I like been there, done that, but I like people have to have the build in them, right? I love early EMC folk. I love early Netapp transition folk. Folk that had to go knock down the mountain, not necessarily the one that farmed the mountain once it was there. They're both meaningful, strong, impactful jobs and require high levels of skill, but we're taking a hill. We're creating a market. So you got to be innovative. You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's not going to be a perfect setup. You have to be resourceful. You can't need the world of resources at your fingertips to kind of do basic things. You gotta be an innovator. You got to be a challenger. You got to be somebody that wants to go out there and really lead from the front. So that sense of urgency, that personal accountability, that desire to be a part of the bill, that want to be ahead of it, and not need to be given direction for every step of the way. That's what I'm looking for in leadership in any level, but particularly in the younger the company and the startups, because you can't survive without it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I'd add on there too. I think obviously EMC and Netapp get great kudos for strong sales forces, but I think a lot of times the engineering or product management gets forgotten about, and I think having whether it's sales reps or sales leaders that know how to communicate and tie back internally to the engineering leaders, and then likewise having an engineering culture that's very customer centric, because you may start off with the standard line is engineers say, well, the customers are stupid, they don't know what they need. Like, okay, well, they're writing the check. So making sure that you have the engineering group involved in understanding the customers and the needs and the sales calls, so you can kind of pivot the product accordingly, so you can have a home run product, which is then that much easier to sell.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So Bill, obviously the topic of this session, first 90 days. Can you break down kind of key areas you tend to focus on and why?
Sure. So I think it starts with the selection process to begin with, right? You got to be honest with yourself, the opportunity that you're looking for, right? I talk to people forever at various levels of their career, and they're seeking advice for what they want to go do next. And the question I ask is, what do you think you want to do? It's kind of a simple question, but it's the question I ask. And I said, have you thought about size and scope of company? And very, very often, the response I get on the other side is, what do you mean, right? Again, for those very experienced, not so much, but you'd be surprised, right? You'd be surprised. And knowing where you're really good and where you need work, being self-aware of strengths and weaknesses, you may choose to do something because you want to refine a skill. That's great. But if you have blind spots to what you're good at and what you're not, that makes it even harder for you to figure out what it is you're looking for next. So I think in that selection process, do you want to be with a big brand name that's got lots of resources, that's got good, brand identity, and that's an already created situation where you're going to have to sustain and build? Or do you want something smaller, right? And again, you want smaller public, where you're going to have to get involved in some cross-functional stuff or do a lot of heavy lifting? Or do you want to go smaller, where you're really going to be a pioneer on the head of it? So these are things you have to crystallize for yourself. You can take an opportunity at different places, but you're going to have to know why, right? So I looked at a couple of things that came to me, and it didn't take me long to figure out I didn't want to do it. They're awesome companies, awesome jobs, awesome opportunities, just not for me. Like I didn't want to go to an already public company, right?
So
I thought maybe smaller public. Then I looked at it. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go build something from the bottom up. So I think that selection piece is a really good place to start. I know that wasn't your question, Dave, but I think it starts there.
no,
Right.
it's a great point. And I think I mentioned to you, a good friend, Tasha Urek, does a lot of research on self-awareness. And I love her comment that 95% of leaders believe they're self-aware, when in fact less than 10% are. So she says the other 85% are lying to themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for a lot of us. Of what do you really want to go do? I love that self-selection. Are you honest with yourself where you're a good fit and where you're not?
So it's a good segue to your question, right? Because you perception's reality, right? So your reputation means a lot, right? I went through various stages of my career. When I went to Netapp, it was funny. So I was at EMC for 10 years. I did a startup, sold it to HP, took a year off, and then joined Netapp. Early days Netapp, there were a bunch of people at Netapp were like, how could you work at EMC? Like the evil machine company. And the stories that I heard, it's like, guys, I love EMC. I had a wonderful 10 years. I literally think Eric Mann and I were the first two people at Netapp to have good experiences at EMC. And EMC wasn't for everybody. Everything's not for everybody. But EMC was a wonderful organization that I thrived at. By the time I got to Netapp, I was a different and more evolved human being. It had nothing to do with my prior successes. But it was funny. One of the reputational challenges I had to overcome at Netapp was that I, as an individual, potentially personified some of the unfair stereotypes that were put on some EMC talent at the time, right? We thrived in it. It's good, but they're little things. I couldn't ignore that. I couldn't ignore the reputation that preceded me. And to some extent, that reputation still precedes me. I'm hard charging. I'm direct. I'm from New York. I'm the son of a civil servant. I'm a straight shooter. What you see is what you get. These are all real. So I can't all of a sudden show up at my new job, my new company, and think that I'm just going to take on a whole new persona, right? And that the reputation that precedes me is not one I'm going to live with. That's where that self-awareness is so important, Dave. Like, I know who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am. My board here knows who I am. My legion of people that I've worked with over my career knows who I am. My customers, my partners know who I am. I want to leverage that. And it's just important. So when you get started, you already have people that are formulating opinions of you. So then what do you have to do, right? Because at the end of the day, you only are to this current task, this current role that you go into, the collective perception of the people that you influence and have responsible for to the goal at hand, right? So what do? You got to meet the team. You got to meet the customers. You got to meet the channel partners. Got to do a deep dive on the processes and the tools. You got to develop your 30, 60, 90-day plan with an open ear, right? I can't just show up day one at a company of any size and say, hey, look at me. I did all this, so this is how we're going to do things now. It doesn't work that way. That's a certified recipe for disaster, right? You got to respect that which has come before you. You got to take the time to learn the history of the place you're going to, the people, how things get done, what the culture's like, what works, potentially what doesn't work. Don't be too quick to rush to judgment because you may not understand it. And then you'll evolve to put your footprint on that organization. But that assessment phase is perfect, and there's no better way. Like I'm on day 13 right now. Since I've been here, I've been to Boston, been to New York, been upstate, been to London. I'm going to Texas next week, and I'm going to California the week after that. Inside of 30 days, I'll have put myself in a position to meet 100% of the employees of the company. I felt it was important. In every stop, I will meet partners and I will meet customers. So you kind of got to mix it up as you go.
I love that, Randy. I don't know if you caught that or not. I love that, to meet the internal team, meet the customers, meet the channel partners, right? Really look at the processes of what they do and how they do it. Randy, and I want to go to some of that. We got some great comments from Nicole and Chris and others. But Randy, what are some of the big mistakes you see leaders like Bill Hogan, right? Very well experienced, sharp, gotta know themselves, know what they're looking for. What are some of the really challenges? What do you see some of the mistakes they make as they go into a place within the first 90 days?
Absolutely, and I just got to have this. Same Nicole said, it's a classic. Hi, Billy. Not true. I had great experience at EMC and Netapp. Bloods and the Crips. People with character will rise above and come together and lead no matter where they are. That's probably one of the best comments we've had in 63 of them. But thanks, Nicole. Yes, I think the mistakes are going in kind of gangbusters, new leader. And if you think about the mechanics of the 90-day plan, as Bill alluded to, the first month is really just kind of assess, listen, understand, kind of meet with everybody. Second 30 days is kind of starting to formulate your plan. Next 30 days is okay, based on, things that I'm passionate about, what I heard from the team, here's kind of what we're going to do. And as a leader, I always found it very beneficial, whatever you're going to roll out, in usually company meetings or town halls, but kind of mentioning people by name. Hey, this partner gave me that idea, so here's what we're going to do. And Sally and Susie kind of said it'd be great if we could do this. So kind of having it be really a collective plan. And as a leader, you're really just kind of putting together kind of what's the right success formula for the company. And then other facet to that, secondly, for individual contributors, the sales reps or BDRs might say, oh, I'm not a leader. I can't have a 90-day plan. I say you absolutely, even more so, should have a 90-day plan, because you should have specific metrics. And by the way, we have in my book, which we'll get to in a little bit, there are examples of a 90-day plan for reps and for managers. But for a rep or a BDR, and say BDR coming in, it's going to be a lot of things. Okay, the first 30 days, how do you get up to speed? What's the product knowledge, sales calls? There's going to be some subjective and objective metrics, but the idea is after 90 days, if you're an individual contributor, you and your manager should know that you're poised for success. And we've all been around organizations where we come in and somebody's been there for 1, 2, or 3 years, and they say, oh, this person's awful. And you say, well, how the heck did they last this long? And then I'll always go back to say, well, how the heck did they get through the first 90 days? Because there was not a 90-day plan that was getting reviewed.
Love that. So, Bill, I want to go back to something you and I have talked about before, which I know you're passionate about this, which is this idea of people over products. Talk about what that means and what that means to you.
Sure. So I'll go again, going back to the early days. Dick Egan had a great, and I don't know if he coined it or he stole it from somebody, but there's no points for originality on this side. But at the end of the day, when in doubt, it's the product stupid. We know that, right? Products got to do what it says it's going to do. Otherwise, your span's going to be limited, right? So up front, especially as sales leaders, we're sales leaders, right? I'm fortunate here. I got a world-class, proven multi-time over exit CTO. He's awesome. His job's the product. What I got to do in the first 90 days is focus on the people and the culture. I got to respect the product. I gotta get my own learning path, so I understand the product, the tech, the use case, the applicability, the battle cards, the playbooks, and making sure we're equipped. But really, what I need to do is establish relationships. Be a good business partner from the beginning with the different functions across the organization, including product tech, marketing, HR, legal, finance, all the different levels of revenue. Get to know them one-to-one and understand what's important to them, because their success is your success, right? The sales guys get the glory and they get the blame. At the end of the day, we're just a product of the cumulative effort of the whole company. And it's important that you bring everybody together along those lines and you consider it. Startups in particular, when people are moving at different speeds, unbeknownst to each other, it can be very problematic, right? So opening up channels of communication, find out what the culture is. Here, it's a Slack culture, right? If you want me, text me, right? And I tell everybody, go, listen, Slack culture, I respect it. I will jump aboard and I will get on the Slack bandwagon. That being said, if you really need me, text me. I will respond instantaneously, right? And I'll probably never answer the phone. But that's a longer conversation. I'll respond to the phone, but I just won't answer it. A book, Powerful Engagement, given to me by Brian Mooney. The message I got out of the book was, live in the moment. Don't interrupt what you're focused on to do something else. Multitasking is overrated. If you just give your all attention to what you're working on now and then move on to the next thing, you'll be more productive. What I got out of that was don't answer my phone because I'd be interrupting one conversation for another, and I can get back to that. The concept of influence over authority. Sometimes leaders get too caught up in that, org, design, what it means. It's all about influence. And you don't need the authority over a function to have the influence that you need. And authority, whatever, you can have it but you really need to influence the outcomes that you want. And you have to show people that you care. Tom Mendoza, longtime friend, vice chair in Netapp, he had a saying, which are words to live by. People don't care what you know unless they know that you care. And you have to live that. And people size you up, and you either care or you don't. And it becomes very, very easy to understand. You got to get to know your customers, and you got to recruit top talent and assess top talent. I'll address the talent thing quickly. Multiple people already asked me in my new place, hey, when you bringing in your team? When you bringing in your team? Like, I've been in the industry 30 years. I've been on a bunch of teams at EMC, a great team at Storage Apps, a bunch of teams at Netapp, a great team at MyVar, a great team at Fortinet, and fantastic teams over my last 4 years of Security Scorecard. So which team are you talking about, right? It's like the team that I care about now, it's this team. And this team is going to be a combination of the talent that is already here, the talent that we attract to come. The way I figure out what's the right talent to bring in is assess what I have, augment, elevate, and surround. And then the culture will be what we collectively bring together. We've all come from somewhere, right? Our culture here will be, based on the actions, activities, and thought, all inspired by a set of shared principles and values. And, what we will be is what our actions say we are. So that recruiting top talent starts with assessing what we have, respecting what we have, and getting the most out of that talent. Because we got here without me before I arrived, and we're going to be in this together for a long time. So what's come before, what's in front of us right now, and then what lies ahead.
Great. Hey, I just want to give some shout outs. Some people commenting here. Henri Denis said, thankful for Bill's tremendous leadership in his time with Security Scorecard. So I'm sure we got a bunch of Security Scorecard people that I know were very bummed to see you leave, but fantastic opportunity beyond identity. Tamika said, the will to win, such true words. Henri chimed back in with a check mark around relationships. And Tim Tolan, also Security Scorecard, I believe, said the skills as a BDR are core to the principles all speakers just spoke about. Very important to remember into sales roles. Well put, Bill. And then Brian Stenberg, may be a little self-serving, but Brian says, Bill, glad to see PC, some Providence take down the Johnnies last night. Talk about our networking events Thursday of the Big East.
Absolutely. Yeah. By the way, if anybody's looking for me on the Thursday of the Big East, get advanced early. But I will be at Madison Square Garden and at a bar nearby in between, and then back at Madison Square Garden all day and then all week. If you're interested in that, get in touch because it's a good annual celebration of my friends that are interested in the Big East hoop and the tech community. I know Stanley will be there.
There you go. And then Tucker, we have another question from Jesse. Thanks, Jesse. He says, Bill, what's the impact of technology on the sales process? A great mentor of mine said, process first. Can you damage your brand with too much volume? So talking about the, I guess, technology and process aspects.
Sure. It always comes down to people, process, and systems, right? And again, it's wherever you are in your evolution, right? And there's no wrong answer. The right answer is wherever you are. Assess and then move forward. If we don't have the right systems in place, we still have to do business. If we don't have the right systems in place and we haven't taken advantage of that or taken account for that and built in some workarounds, then we're going to be even more broken. So people, process, and system is incredibly important. I owe a tremendous amount of my personal success as a leader to a litany of unbelievable sales ops professionals that put up with me regularly and still to enable a data-driven, accurate, predictable, and consistent way by which you run the business. For me, it goes back to Laura Chakowski, who was with me at EMC, then Storage Apps, then Netapp, and unfortunately, she's been so successful and has made so much money, I can't afford to hire her anymore. And she's built a legion of people underneath her, Victoria Reale and Megan Santiago, and they learned under the best of the business back then. You go back to the early days of EMC with those people who have done that. My current ops team here at Beyond Identity, fast friends. Heidi Rauwig, who was my ops person at Security Scorecard over the last year, was one of the best ops people I ever worked with. So respect the data, respect the systems, take the time to understand it. You can't bully that. You can't bull rush it. You have to understand it. You have to appreciate it. You have to respect it. And what I used to joke with Vic in particular, when I had my desire for the data, was it's just a sort, right, Vic? It's just a sort. It's just a never-ending spreadsheet. It's just a sort. Just give me what I want. And but I learned something managing in that particular relationship because she finally snapped one day. And she said, listen, I'm done giving up all my weekends every weekend to give you the data you want on Monday morning. I'm like, whoa, I don't want you to give up your weekends, right? That was a fundamental break, right? So yes, I want the data, but not at the expense of the people. And there was no process to do it. And her will to win and support and please me, she was giving up her weekends for months. I didn't know. Terrible on me. Terrible on me. Fortunately, it was younger in her career, and she figured it out. And we adjusted. It was probably one of the best adjustments I made as a leader, to adjust to what the team could deliver. And we created a calendar and a schedule. And I said, you tell me, you know what I'm looking for when I'm looking for it. I don't want fire drills. Fire drills are the worst. You want it consistent, predictable, and accurate. You want to know what systems you have, what systems you're going to have to get, and then you have to know that you have workarounds. And then you have to put reasonable expectations on the people that you're counting on to deliver that to you. And you can't just push because I want. If you break them, then you're dead, right? So everybody's on a different place in that journey. It has to start with being aware of that and respecting it tremendously, and then understand what you can live without and what you can't, and then what you could put on the longer term, let's fix and get there eventually, and then what we can live with now. Because everybody talks about scale, but you know what doesn't scale? Unhappy customers and unhappy employees, right? That doesn't scale. So you got to find balance in that and respect it.
Absolutely. So just while you're touching on kind of some of the technology and the tools there, we have Outreach as a sponsor, so maybe you could share some perspectives on them, and then perhaps some of the other tools that you like.
I think Outreach is great. It's one of the better utilized tools. We used it tremendously at Scorecard, and I'm very, very happy to see that it's a highly utilized tool here. And we actually had 2 sessions today on expanding its utilization. So that's terrific. Gong is one of the best tools to come along ever, right? The only way you could give feedback historically was to ride shotgun, right, Randy? I mean, you and I did that a lot, and then anybody who's ever been on a sales day with Randy, at the end of the day, you got the back of his business card filled with handwritten notes on what we need to do. And then he would give you a follow-up email that night of everything you should do. He still does it after every meeting. What Gong allows you to do is get truncated versions of every meeting that ever happens. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's awesome. It's sortables. I can't imagine living without it. I think those 2 tools, Salesforce is the body of truth, right? So and everything builds into Salesforce. So companies that don't use it, candidly, I don't understand it. I get you can use other things, but the world builds into it. I think you should, there's no reason to fight the world on everything. We use things like Alice for gift management, but those are the biggies that I hit there. LinkedIn is an unbelievable tool, and all the different variations of the LinkedIn toolkit. I think those are the biggies. Are there others that that you've been found of, and I'd love to hear actually from the audience if there's particular tools that either one I just missed and I should have mentioned, or that they think are particularly interesting. But I think those are some big ones that I just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. Nour, how about getting some of the great questions we have here?
Yeah, I love this one from Andrew. How does Beyond approach large enterprise accounts that have existing relationships with security companies to provide their MFAs? Can Beyond Solutions integrate with Palo, Cisco, Fortinet, and other zero trust approaches?
So we approach every account and situation with respect. You know, we don't think anybody's made a mistake in decisions that they've made to date. You know, we all do what we can with the technology that's available to solve the problems, and then we move on. You know, it's not like companies are going to go out of business if they don't buy my product. We have integrations currently with Okta. We have ones with CrowdStrike. We have conversations going on about having additional ones with some of the firewall players mentioned, and we'll get there. The Okta one is a great integration that just works, right? Because Okta is a good plug. It works. They don't really have something for the passwordless piece of it, and we just kind of work together there. If you look at next gen type stuff, there's overlap, but there's overlap with every security company on the planet. We're going to change the front end. We'd like to have, and I expect us to have, relationships with Palo, with CrowdStrike, with Deep Instinct, with SentinelOne. These are going to be primary players in the space. Everybody has a little bit of piece of the pie. The reality is, like Warman Hogan told me, going on 8 years ago now, security is the number one challenge in the marketplace, and it's going to be for the rest of our shelf life. The great security company hasn't emerged yet, right? IBM was it at one point. IBM was all things to all people. Then IBM kind of changed its way and became the world's greatest services company. And then EMC became the storage company, Oracle database, SAP application, Microsoft, what it did, Dell PC, and different industries were born, right? And then there's subsets of storage and subsets of all of the above, right? And there's great security companies, but the great security company, you won't get fired for buying X, that doesn't exist. Palo's a great company. Fortinet, Checkpoint, Juniper, Cisco, they pretty much share that firewall space. There's certain things people like about each one versus the other, but nobody's dominant. There's no Cisco of the space. Like when I was with EMC back in the late 90s, one of the things that I thought we were a little confused on back then Cisco legitimately had 90% of the market share for what they did then. So when you have 90% of the market share, there's certain things you can do. Right, EMC, I think at its peak had like 24%. So there's certain things you just can't do when you only have 24% of the market, but you can't claim. You can be bold, but you also have to be realistic, right? So coexistence in the security landscape is essential. Customers would prefer to be able to buy from less companies and solve the bigger piece of the problem. That hasn't matured yet. That hasn't occurred yet. So I fundamentally believe, and I know, we will coexist with great companies to solve big problems for years to come. There are certain pieces of the stack that we can get rid of. I won't make friends on the MFA side with this, but the government already laid it out. I mean, you don't need to do a push MFA ever again, nor should you. You're not more secure by doing it. Actually, you're realistically probably less secure. Didn't realize that 2 years ago. It is what it is. Sorry. So there's a more secure way, an easier way to go there. You're going to see a lot of replacements in that arena. You're going to see a lot of, aggressive sales fights. If there are people from Cisco on the line right now, I'll apologize in advance. We can still remain friends, but that particular piece of the segment, we're probably going to disagree on. Palo, no. Fortinet, no. I think we're going to coexist wonderfully. Cisco's interesting in that they have a product for everything. So, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So, with respect and with coexistence as a reality.
Yeah, I want to shout out to Jesse. Appreciate the kind comment on the RevOps. Bill Hogan knows this, that Jen Cords from Security Scorecard has joined us, and we've stood up a RevOps practice, and we're getting some really good traction and bringing in the great tools and helping clients tie those together. So thank you for that. Bill, back to the 90-day focused, 90-day, if you will, sprint. You also believe in gaining early wins. Touch up on some of those. Like, what are you looking for in that win in your sale early on to establish the credibility, to establish some momentum, and really get the team and customers and channel partners on your side with the vision that you have?
Sure. I can give you the easy answer first. I'll take any early win where I can get it. Right? um, but to use a term that you've put into my regular repertoire, we need to be much more intentional than that, right? So things like assess first before you act. Like I'm a man of action. Eric Mann, longtime boss, always said one of the things he respects about me. Alex Jampolsky, my old CEO, really enjoyed a term I use, like, not always right, but never in doubt, right? My ability to make decisions, I'm good with, but you gotta take the time and be judicious in that, right? So you do have to assess. I can make some quick decisions, but even in a quick decision, you got to assess the situation, right? You want to prioritize, the top 2 or 3 things you think you really got to do. You can make longer lists and you can take all comers, but you really got to prioritize it, and then you got to show progress. We're a SaaS-based security company. What are we going to do? We're going to deliver ARR. We're going to retain our customers, and we're going to increase pipeline. Right? Those are the 3 things I'm going to impact every single day. Right? And in line, all the different functions will kind of get in line. And what are the 3 things we're doing that are going to impact those 3 items? They're the key metrics for any SaaS-based company. You have to develop coalitions of support. I learned this as a son of a civil servant. Like I got the backhand of my father's, very strong right fist multiple times because I refused to accept the answer because I said so. I was 11 years old. I'm like, Dad, that's not an answer. I need to know why. He goes, I'll tell you why. Bang. I'm like, okay. But going back to the resilience thing and the perseverance, I just kept on coming back for more. And he said, you'll see when you're an adult. You'll see when you're a parent. And I will say, I love my dad, and he gave me a lot. And the work ethic and the resiliency was there. But I've held true to form. Because I said so is not a good enough answer. Sometimes it has to be, right? But you have to earn the respect. You got to tell people why. You have to show them how, or be open to letting them show you how. Because when people understand why, and they understand how, or they can bring you as part of that mix, what you can accomplish is so much greater than just telling them they have to do so. You have to define success. This is where experience comes in. You asked a question earlier about experienced leaders. People that know what good looks like, and I say that sometimes, and I get a quizzical look from the person I'm talking to, and I get concerned because they don't know what I mean. I mean, it's like, all right, so we need to get there because you don't know what good looks like here in this situation. I need to find that, and then you have to be clear in defining that success. You have to clarify, collaborate, communicate, right? The expectation setting is so critical for this, and along the way, you get quick wins. And I'll give you 2 examples of quick wins here. There was a young leader here who was hired to run a component of the sales team. They made a shift in the adjustment. He became an individual contributor, and he was one of the top individual contributors in the company last year. When we kind of looked at where the product is matured and where the market's going, we're definitely aligning a much more aggressive go-to-market. This guy's chomping at the bit to go run that commercial team. Quick win for me, give him the opportunity. On paper, I would hire him. I met him in person, I would hire him. He's been here, he's performed. He's dying for this job. I want that guy in that job. I hired him right away, promoted him right into the spot. Quick win. Quick win. The team supports it. They rally around it. That's great. We got some hiring to do. There's some people that have some diverse skills that want to branch out into different parts of the organization. Support them. Quick wins. Quick wins. There's some things in the comp plan that are causing salespeople grief and causing the finance people grief. I kind of figured that out quickly. I'm like, okay, well, let's just end those. And everybody's like, oh, that'd be great. Okay, good. Quick win, right? So there's other wins you get out there, but you get them where you can, but you have to listen in order and figure out where you get them along the way.
Randy, Bill also contributed to the book a couple sections.
He did, and I just want to make sure we can't read them all, but just give shout outs. So thanks for the comments from Peter, Chris Lucas, great to see you. Tom wants your miles. Frank Roush has put in a plug for Checkpoint, of course. And Laura has an awesome comment on you, which is so true. It's easy to work for a leader like Bill when you know how much he cares. He's incredibly loyal. He has a great vision and strategy. You want to be part of his team because you're always learning and having fun while doing it. I owe a lot of my success to Bill, and blessed I get to call him a friend. So Laura, so very well said. Mike says another great session. So yes, so getting to the book. So for those that don't have it, you can go to salescommunity.com/book or Amazon. And Bill, Nour, and several other great leaders kindly contributed. Bill has 3 fantastic write-ups that he has. Maybe I'll ask about 2 of them. So Bill, one of them is talking about relationships and the Super 6 and the Dirty Dozen. Tell us about that.
Sure, it's a Scotty Bird favorite from Netapp's days gone by. So we all have variations of how we assess and prioritize important relationships for us. The Super 6 emanated from identifying 6 people internal to the organization that are most critical to your success. It's a big company, whatever size company you're at. There's lots of people, but pick 6, and then the selection process is one thing. Then once you pick the 6, then the follow-on question is why. Then the follow-on question is, do they know? Then the follow-on question is, what are you doing about it, right? And that of itself, just going through the exercise, a lot of good things happen, right? Because you're never on an island doing it yourself, and you need to have constituencies and coalitions internally that are helping you in your success. So that's the Super 6. Dirty Dozen, similar concept, except the external-facing resources. Pick the 12 people that are most important to your success in this coming year. Could be a channel partner rep, could be an owner of a channel partner, could be a coach, could be 5 CIOs or CISOs of your biggest customers. The mileage can vary on who those people are. Same set of questions that follow on. Why? Do they know? What are you doing about it? Right? And then you should kind of revisit that every 3-6 months or so and keep yourself honest. Are you doing your part in relationship management? Are you aware of what this is? You'd be amazed at how many accomplished salespeople can't finish the first phase of the exercise. Right? And it's okay, by the way, that's okay. But if you don't want to do it, I guess you don't have to. But man, I've never met one that once they kind of went through it on the back end didn't say that was a really good self-analysis. And then most go to, it's a really good continued analysis to make sure that you're building those relationships, building those coalitions, and being a good partner to others and having them be a good partner to you.
Absolutely. And Nour, you wrote Relationship Economics. Any tidbits you want to chime in on?
Yeah, I just want to give the audience 3 quick points. One, Bill is exactly right. You got to start with those relationships inside the organization. I want you to think like a family. If it's dysfunctional on the inside, everybody's going to see it. 2 is the customers. Those customers are invaluable early on. If you build advocates out of them, if you build champions out of them, they'll do a lot of your reference selling for you. 3 is absolutely the channel partners. And those that also have relationships at the edge, you got to pick a few and love on them and really make sure that they also represent you, your brand, the values that you deeply believe in. So I love this question by Darcy. Hi, Bill. I'm a top SDR in my company. How do I get promoted to an AE or a frontline manager? Also, how do we get more women like me in sales?
Good way for her to get hired here is send me your resume.
Hey, Darcy, there you go.
Bill.Hogan@beyondidentity.com. Or you can just get through.
Wait, say it again, Bill.
Bill.Hogan.
Bill, say it again.
Beyondidentity.com.
Darcy, I would send your resume to Bill Hogan today, like now.
That said, the broader answer there is, there's questions to ask of yourself. How long have you been in the role? What have you done to put yourself in that role? Have you exhausted the training? Have you exhausted the networking? Have you essentially put yourself in the mindset of what it takes to be in that job and almost come short of just doing the job, right? Really getting yourself prepared as opposed to waiting for the anointment, right? That's a piece that's lost on a lot of young professionals these days. Sometimes you think that you just put the time in and you're going to get it. Those that can get, right? If you don't ask, you don't get. You got to be mindful. You got to be respectful, but you still got to push. I signed up for a 2-year program when I started EMC. I got my first job offer to the field after 3 months. Tom Heiser bitch slapped me, if you're still allowed to say that, and told me to get
I
back
don't
in
think
line.
so.
I got a second. I apologize for that. I really do sincerely apologize for that. Then 2 months later, I got my second job offer. 3 months later, I got my third job offer. 9 months in, I got the offer to come to New York, and Tom was like, "You wore me down. That's where you're from. You were probably born to sell in New York. Go ahead." Right. So, you got to just make sure that you should clearly have demonstrated that you're the best in your comparison class. And usually, when you look right to left, you're setting the bar too low anyway. And you need to be looking up 2 levels ahead of you and outside the organization. And how do you stack up against them? Because that's who your competition is. It's not the people sitting right and left. It's the other people externally that potentially bring more to the table.
Yeah, so great. So Darcy says she's going to go apply. Darcy, I'd say go to bill.hogan at beyondidentity.com. Forget about the website.
Yeah.
Go right to the
You can hit the
source.
website and apply also, but I would go with the referral.
There you go. And Suzanne, great marketing leader from Security Scorecard, now at Mimecast. Thanks for your great comments. So anyway, time flies when you're having fun. Really appreciate everybody watching. Feel free to pass it along. You can go to salescommunity.com, the top of the website. We also have now a free newsletter. We're up to, I think, about 6,000 subscribers. This week, the theme is around giving and getting feedback. Other editions have my goals, leadership, a whole bunch of great tidbits in there as well. And Nour, as always, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And Bill, any closing words of wisdom for the audience?
It's again, to go back to the theme of the first 90 days. The courtship and recruitment, that's romance, right? When you get the job, that's marriage, right? So that's when you're in it for the long haul. That's when you really got to commit to everything that's there. So, when you first get in, you got to come ready for bear, and you have to be able to commit. Commit, because it's never going to be as good as it looks from the outside. Most likely, there's going to be stuff that you're going to have to deal with. Just embrace it and get after it, and be committed to it. The last piece is, just a couple of basic things. Just be prepared, accelerate your learning piece. That's important. Match the strategy to the situation that you're in. Negotiate successes with your peers, with your boss, with your board, with your subordinates. Have everybody have a piece in it. Secure those early wins. Achieve alignment, build your team, right? Be yourself, be the best version of you can be. And that consistency will be contagious, and you will show and demonstrate the type of leader you want to be, the type of leader that you want to be emanated, and the type of values that you want pushed through your organization, and success will follow.
There you go. Well said. And lastly, thanks to Outreach for sponsoring today. So once again, Bill, thanks so much. Nour, thanks so much. Everybody have a good one. This gets posted on LinkedIn Live and a whole bunch of other spots. So tell others to come and watch. And have a great week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.